All right, so I'm back. So like said, I left off on my marriages, uh, and arranged marriages and things like that in general. So basically, I was starting to get into people having more than one wife and people having more than one husband. Um, Basically, as I said a little bit about that. But I'll skim on that. But again, marriage has its own subject matter, so that's going to be separate. Marriage in general. This is more got geared towards myself to kind of clarify things, like I stated. So basically, people that got married to more than one person, it was not extremely rare, but not everyone was doing it. It was not. It was a common thing, but everyone didn't do it, and it was rare because I'll tell you why. The issue is that um, usually how the marriages work, if you were um, married to more than one person, is that usually the first marriage would be the superior spouses in marriages of, marriages with more than one spouse. So what that means is that the people that were, so say I got married, my first husband would be the superior spouse than my second husband or my third husband, and vice versa. If a man got married to a woman, his first wife would be superior um, than his second wife or his third wife, and etc. Spiritually superior. So basically, what that means is that they had a system when it came to people married to multiple people. Basically, it was a big thing to take on another husband or another wife if you were already in a marriage, for many reasons, because um, basically you didn't want to taint your original marriage. So that was an issue. So you did not want to cause issues or problems or a dissolution of a marriage um, due to the fact you're taking on a second wife or a second husband, third husband, etc. Because there were issues. You have to be able to all get along, and you have to. There would be jealousy at times if it wasn't the right situation. Because again, most of the time, they had mistresses and they had misters at that time. So, people, it was more common to have misters and mistresses, more common to have mistresses, but there were misters as well. Misters were male, uh, you know what a mistress is, but they were males that women would see, um, like a man would see a mistress, but it would just be the male counterpart to the male equal to a mistress. So basically, it was more common to have mistresses and misters. And I will talk more about the mistresses and the misters because again, that's a whole nother subject. But it was more common to do that for the reasons I previously stated. So it was more common to have misters and mistresses. Now, if you took on another wife, that meant you either fell in love with someone else, you wanted to keep them around, you really grew to like those people, so you would, you know, take on another spouse that way. But it was really a big decision and it had to be talked about and discussed with uh, with the two spouses, the two original spouses, because you didn't want to taint the marriage, you didn't want to ruin the marriage, you didn't want to cause issues in the marriage. Um, it was just not always kumbaya. You know what I mean? It really had to be the right person for you and your spouse. You know what I mean? Because people can cause big issues in your marriage if you allow them around you in that way. So, they had to make sure that second wife was clear, or the second husband was clear that, they were not the superior spouse. So there was rules. There was rules to it and a system they had. And I'm about to just skim lightly over the system. In some of the music videos, you may see it was in the metallics. The metallics were very important. The metallic colors, because those were kind of how you were identified in a marriage if you had more than one wife or more than one husband, through metallics. So as I stated, Africa was that was one of the primary natural resources in Africa, precious metals and precious stones. So they went by metallics as well, just like how they do in the Olympics. You have the gold medal, the silver medal, the bronze medal, and whatnot. So it was kind of like that. So basically, the first spouses would be the gold spouse. You know what I mean? And you were identified through your rings. Your rings is how you were identified, as if you were, what position you were in a marriage. So, if, I'm going to use myself as a reference just in general. Say I got married to someone and I was my first husband and I was his first wife, okay? We were the two original spouses in the marriage. Now, if we would go out together or be seen together or something, we would both have on gold rings, you see. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. The first spouse is a diamond. So you have diamond, gold, silver, bronze. Okay? So how it happens is, if I was seen out with my first husband and my husband was seen out with his first wife, we would both have on diamond rings or some sort of precious stone in the ring. You see? So it doesn't necessarily always have to be a diamond, but some type of precious stone, because that's a little more valuable than precious metals. Precious stones in general are more valuable than precious metals. So you would have usually a gold ring with some sort of precious stone incorporated in it somewhere, just to show that is your diamond. That's your primary spouse, and that is your position in that marriage. Now, say I take on. Okay, well, no, you know what? We'll use Ptah as a reference. So, say Ptah is going to get a second wife. Now, if we accept a second wife into the marriage, okay, say he went somewhere without the second wife. Okay, now say he's out with the second wife. He would have on a gold ring with a precious stone incorporated into it. And the second wife, say I'm not there, they're just out without me or with me. That woman, the second wife, would have on just a gold ring, okay? I would have on, if say I'm with them, say it's all three of us now. Ptah would have on a gold ring with a precious stone incorporated into it. I would have on a gold ring with a precious stone incorporated into it. And the second wife would have on a gold ring with no precious stone incorporated into it. So that would identify her position in that marriage. She would be gold, But that's how it worked. Now, say he was to take on the third wife, okay? Say it was all, now we all four went out together, okay? Me and Ptah would have on gold rings with a stone incorporated. The second wife would have on a gold ring with no stone incorporated. The third wife would have on a silver ring with no stone incorporated. and so on and so forth. You were not expected to have too many wives at a time, though. That was the thing. You weren't expected to go overboard with the marriages. There really was, because the issue with that is that you couldn't, they didn't want you to have so many other wives and husbands at one time, because you were allowed to have more than one, but you really shouldn't have had so many of them, because the issue was it just lack of attention, lack of mostly lack of attention, lack of what everyone needed from a marriage, because you're spreading yourself thin so much, you know what I mean? So it would have been, they didn't want too many spouses on one marriage at one time, because that meant someone was not going to be getting everything they needed, or, someone was going to be lacking various needs that they needed. Even though there was that level type of system, they were still important. The fact that they were married into the marriage, that meant they were significant in some way, because they would have just remained a mister or a mistress. So they were still respected, but the rings and the metallics and the various identifications is just how they were identified, when you're out somewhere mostly, just so people would know what would, it was relevant to be able to identify yourself within marriages. Not just when you're out, but even in the home, you know what I mean? Like, just, you had to be aware of your position in a marriage, because like I said, it wasn't always kumbaya. It was not always kumbaya. So, you could have a lot jealousy, you could have different things in those situations. That's why it was really a big deal to take on another wife or another husband, for those reasons, because you didn't want too many on at one time, because a lot of men think that, like, oh, hey, 4 or 5 wives, that's great, it's great, but you know what, a lot of men aren't able to handle one woman. Now imagine 5. You see what I mean? So that's what I mean. You know what I mean? A lot of men aren't able to give one woman what they need. It's a fact. A lot of men aren't able to give one woman what she needs, and give one woman the attention she needs, one woman everything she needs. So now you got 5 now. So just imagine trying to give each woman the attention and the individualized time and attention and everything they need. So it was difficult, and it was unfair to those women and the man, if they weren't able to get what they needed out of the marriage, because marriage was, I'll talk more about it, but it's supposed to be a happy thing, and it was very frowned upon if you had too many spouses at one time for those reasons. So basically, that's a little bit about how arranged marriages work. But any wives or husbands that came after the original wife or husband, they were expected to know their position in the marriage. So it was just ways to conduct yourself, ways to, things like that. You know what I mean? Because you don't want a second or third wife kind of coming in and taking over and, things like that, and ruining the original relationship. So you were expected to know your place, and you knew what you were getting yourself into. You know what I mean? Everyone knew it was open. You know what I mean? That's why there were many successful marriages that way. And then, there were also many unsuccessful ones that way, because because of jealousy or different issues. So basically, if you were not the first wife or husband in a marriage, you knew what you were getting yourself into. You knew, okay, they already have 2 wives, so I would be on a silver position in this specific marriage. Okay? So, even some of, if, and it was vice versa. If you say you didn't have to just be married to one man as either, okay? If you were the first wife, and now it was frowned upon more so the men had more than one wife than the women had more than one husband at a time. But usually, especially if you were the first spouse, so if you're the first wife in a marriage, you have a diamond in your ring in that specific, or a precious stone in your ring in a specific marriage. You were not expected to take on another husband unless you were on any lower hierarchy than the first wife. So say you have a gold ring, no precious stone, a silver ring, no precious stone, a bronze ring, no precious stone, a second, third, fourth, etc. wife. It was more accepted for those women to be able to have another husband where they were the gold ring with the precious stone in it. You see what I mean? So in one marriage, you may be on silver or bronze, but then in another marriage, you're gold with a diamond. So you see how that works. So that's the reason it worked. Many times it was successful because it was not always just like 19 kids and counting. They're considered, what are they considered again? What's the term? Polygamy. It was not usually a situation that way where it's like one man has like so many wives and blah, 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 for the reasons I stated, because of the lack of the attention and whatnot. So it was not the same as polygamy. You see what I mean? Those women that were not on a goal, with women who did not have, as I stated, women who were not the first wife in a marriage were permitted to seek out other husbands to be the first wife in a marriage. Not seek out, but be the gold diamond in a marriage. You know what I mean? Because that's what they deserved. That's what they wanted. But that sometimes didn't happen for different reasons. And like I stated before, sometimes you weren't. Sometimes you weren't in an arranged marriage. Like, it was not required to be in an arranged marriage. So, but that was the bulk of what people did, But, like, you weren't required, because many times, many people were in arranged marriages, but they messed up those arranged marriages in different ways. Maybe they had sex and lost your virginity before they were supposed to, and they were considered tainted. Just different reasons as to why someone would not get married before they were supposed to be married in an arranged marriage. Because, sometimes people, did lose their virginity and things like that. Because, or just you're messing around with someone else. Just someone other than your arranged marriage, or just different things could have happened in life where you were not on track to marry that person no longer, because that person, their family, didn't want you to get married to them anymore for different reasons. That happened to me as well. And I'll explain that when I talk about some of the movies and music and media and literature and things. But basically, sometimes if you didn't do what you were expected prior to an arranged marriage, prior to the marriage, if you did certain things, sometimes that family did not want to accept that person for their children anymore, for their child anymore, So, basically, depended upon what happened, they could say, okay, I don't want to have my son or daughter married to this person anymore, based on what may have happened. So basically, that would happen sometimes. So, oftentimes if that happened, now you have not only do you have a stigma attached to you, but you also are considered tainted if there were any sexual things. Sometimes women were raped. It wasn't only they lost their virginity, but sometimes it was rare. But there were a lot of versions, but rape was very rare in ancient times, and it grew more common as time went on. But initially rape was very rare, because it was very serious crime. And I'll talk more about all this stuff at some point. But you were considered tainted even if you didn't have consensual sex with someone. So that could have been a woman could have got raped, and that family of her future husband would have said, well, we don't want her to be married to our son anymore for those reasons. So that happened as well, but it was rare now in ancient times, and that grew more common, as I said, as time went on. So basically, that is kind of how the not a level system, but hierarchy. I like the word hierarchy better than level. But yeah, it kind of worked better that way, because those women were able to go, if they could get married to someone else, or if they were already, it's a lot to it. I'll really go more into that when I talk about marriage in general. But, basically, but basically, yeah, so they could be the more superior wife in another marriage, if they weren't in one, if they were able to get married to someone. Because many times, like I said, people ended up mistresses or misters because of various reasons, tainting, whatever may have happened. They weren't getting married anymore. That's usually how a mistress ended up being a mistress. And then sometimes people would marry them after that. And sometimes you were just too tainted, or just too considered not marriage material anymore after so long, dependent upon what things happen to make you not, just to cause that. So basically that is a little bit on how the levels work with the marriages. But I was also married, like I said, to other people. I got through, and not just at one time, okay? I'm talking throughout the 9 life cycles. I did get married to other people for various reasons. Because each life cycle, lots of things happen. So it was like, just all kinds of things happen. So sometimes, just things don't work out the way they're intended to, because I was intended to be with Ptah, as I stated. He was intended to be with me. So different things happen in different life cycles as to why we didn't get married sometimes, or we did get married sometimes and it didn't work. It was issues and problems, or, fidelity, or just different things happen as to why we would have taken on more wives and more husbands throughout the 9 life cycles. Loneliness, that was a big issue with me throughout a lot of my life cycles when it came to Ptah. And I'm just being honest, including this one. So, you seek out attention from other people. You seek out affection and things like that from other people. So basically, I originally thought I only had 2 other husbands other than Ptah, but I actually have 4 other husbands 4 other individuals that I married throughout the 9 life cycles. This would not have been all at one time. And so I am going to name those people right now because it is relevant. Now, The first person I married was, well, my intended, okay, let's get this straight. I'm not even going to go in order of who I got married to first, but what I will say is I will go in order of the hierarchy. One second. So I will go in order of the hierarchy and not the order of actual marriage, because the hierarchy is more important than the order in my case, because Ptah is really who Ra wants me to be with. That was my intended marriage. And we are literally conceptually connected, and we're also spiritually connected. So we're very connected. So basically, he would be the Ptah Mike Dean would be the most superior husband of mine. Even though technically in the first life cycle he was not the first person I married, and I'll say who I did marry first, but he was supposed to be the first person I married, but that did not happen because various reasons. As you will see in Coming to America, that's not the total story, but that was what occurred in the first life cycle. So we eventually did get married in the first life cycle, but there were some road blocks and some bumps in the road as to why we weren't married first. So in the first life cycle, I was not Ptah's first wife, and he was not my first husband. He was my second husband. I'm sorry, my third. Sorry, I have to clarify this. He was actually my third husband in the first life cycle. I was his second wife. Okay, but he still has the more hierarchy, being that we were conceptually connected. Now, I'm not conceptually connected to any of my other husbands. I'm just spiritually connected to the other husbands. But with Ptah, I'm connected conceptually as well as spiritually. So that is what gives him the superiority in my husbands that I married. So that holds true for anyone. If you were in a legit arranged marriage, even if you're not married to that person now, that person would be your more superior spouse, because you would have be conceptually as well as spiritually connected to that person. Someone other than a legit arranged marriage that you have married, you would just be spiritually connected. So that arranged marriage is always going to be the number one spouse, being that you're also conceptually connected as well as spiritually. So basically, well, if you've married your arranged marriage. So basically, I will state who I married in order of hierarchy, not in order of marriage. In order of hierarchy, my most superior husband would be Ptah / Michael Dean. My second husband in the hierarchy would be Michael Jackson. That is someone I married. He has his own, he really needs his own, just like all the husbands, they really need their own time for me to explain more about them and more about what they've done. But he's as I stated, they're innocent. He's innocent, I'm sorry, of his previous charges. And I'll also explain that when I talk more about Michael Jackson, because he's very relevant. But, yes, so I did end up marrying Michael Jackson. He would be second in the hierarchy. Okay, now I'm stating this the hierarchy positions because it's relevant, and I'll explain why it's relevant after I'm done naming the husbands in the correct hierarchies. So Michael Jackson would be second in the hierarchy. He was the first person I married, though. So, oh, I'm actually incorrect. Sorry. Hold on. I'll clarify.
Okay, can you talk a little bit lower?
Yeah, I'm about to be done. That's why I was. See, this is what I like to do. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to state the hierarchy. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Basically, I'm sorry, Michael Jackson was the third person I married. I'm here. Hold on. I need to just clarify this. First, we're going to do hierarchy, okay, because that's the most relevant right now. So, in order of hierarchy, sorry, my hand fell asleep. In order of hierarchy, sorry. In order of hierarchy, it would be 1, Patah / Mike Dean. This is hierarchy, okay? 2, Michael Jackson. 3, Prince. These are people I married in order of hierarchy. 3, Prince. 4, Nasir Jones. 5, there's always a 5th. And I was shocked when I found this one out. John Bon Jovi. Okay, so, and I will explain why the hierarchy is that way. But that is not the order of marriage. Okay, the order of marriage would be, the first person I married was Prince. Okay, the second person would have been Michael Jackson. 2, this is now, again, this is order of marriage. The second person I would have married was Michael Jackson. Now, this occurred because, like I said, before I became queen, and I explained what happened when I got the task, okay? So basically, you know, I got the task, what happened is what happened, and I was shunned. Okay, I was shunned. So during my shunning, I got married to Prince and Michael Jackson because, as I stated, Patah, his Patah and his family, they rejected me after a while for his son, for Patah. So, you know, I was no longer on track to be married to Patah any longer because of the controversy, what happened and all that thing. So during my time being shunned and outside of the palace, I met those individuals. We got married. You know, I was not supposed to even be doing that, but really I thought I was not going to be married to Patah anymore. That's long in the past. That is what was in my head when I married those people. So, you know, as I stated, my intended marriage was to Patah, but in order of marriage, it would be 1, in order of how I married them. 1 would be Prince. 2, Michael Jackson. 3, Patah. Okay, now these are the 3. I had 3 husbands, okay, in the first life cycle. So I did not have any more husbands in the first life cycle. These are the most I had in the first life cycle. Now, I'm not exactly sure as to when and what life cycle I married the other 2, but at some point in following life cycles, I also married Nazir Jones, which would be 4. I married him before I married, last but not least, John Bon Jovi at some point. So this would be throughout the 9 life cycles. This was not all at one time. But as I stated, once you marry someone, you're spiritually connected, whether they're in an arranged marriage or not. So eventually, I ended up marrying Patah in the first life cycle anyway, after all the drama and after everything happened. So, and I'll explain a lot of that soon. But we did eventually marry in the first life cycle, and he retained his position as the most superior husband in that marriage, as I stated, for the fact that we were conceptually connected, not just spiritually. We became spiritually connected once we married. But you know, so that's what happened. Those are the husbands and the people I actually married. Now, I had many romantic relationships with, many romantic relationships with different people, different romantic relationships, or love, affairs, or, not love affairs where you're cheating, but, just love, romantic relationships at some point, because like I said, now I'm talking throughout the 9 life cycles, okay? Because, and various sexual encounters where it's just sex and not very much a romantic relationship. So basically, those would be the only individual, and those people I named, those 5 individuals, would be the only individuals I married throughout the entire 9 life cycles. I did not marry anyone else. I may have had romantic relationships or sexual relationships or friendships. Every relationship I had with an opposite sex was not sexual. Some were platonic friendships as well. Okay. Okay, and now I'm just going to finish up. I'm going to finish up because it's getting late, and, I'm pretty loud. So basically, I'm getting tired too. But I'll finish recording tomorrow, and hopefully I can have them uploaded in a adequate amount of time. So basically, I explained the order of hierarchy. This is the last part of this, and I'm going to end this video. Basically, I stated them first in order of hierarchy for the reason because, as I stated, Michael Dean / Patah would be first in line to be my husband, to be the father of the unborn child. So he was intended for that position from birth, and so he is intended to take that position. But as I stated, just because you're intended to do a position, or you're supposed to do a position, does not mean you always do it, depending on different reasons. If you're found unworthy, if you're found not to, just not to be ready, you're found, you don't want to do it. Even in ancient times, you didn't force anyone to do anything. Sometimes they did, but sometimes you didn't, It's not ancient times now, so no, you're not going to be forced to do any of the monarch positions, even if you're named. Like I'll talk about more of that too, the people I named, like that, the people I named to the monarch positions, that does not necessarily mean you have to do that, and everyone named is not going to do that for various reasons. Either they're found to be unworthy, not by myself, but rah-rah, usually through weighing in, like I said, because you have to be at a certain level of spiritual balance to take certain positions. So, or you might not want to do it. So some people that were named may be found unworthy. Some people may not just want to do it. They don't want to do it. So, you're not going to be forced. You may be found worthy to do it, but you just don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Literally, there's a lot to it. It's a lot to it. So I'll explain more of that as well when I talk about the monarch positions, because that has its own category as well. But basically, the intended husband, my Patal, Mike Dean, would be intended and expected to take that position. By Ra, he's expected to take that position because he was always intended to do that position from the first life cycle. And I was, as I stated, created to specifically be with him. We were created conceptually to specifically be husband and wife, and king and queen and overseer of a lot of things. So, it's a lot to it. So, but basically, say if he's found to either be unworthy or he just doesn't want to do the position, you go to the next person. Okay, now these are individuals in line for that specific position by marriage. These are people I have already married in past life cycles. So I'm spiritually connected to each and every one of them. And I'm spiritually and conceptually connected only to Ptah. That is again what puts him in the most superior position in this specific marriage. So you would just revert to the next person in line for that throne, in line for that position, based on worthiness and of desire. You're not going to be forced to do it. So the next person that we would go to would be Michael Jackson for that position. And and so on and so forth. If he's found unworthy, he doesn't want to do it. Now, the issue with Michael Jackson and Prince is that they're deceased. So that physically eliminates them from the position because it's relevant in the matter of the unborn son and the child. You have to physically be present to create a child that way. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to be immaculate conception. It's going to be physical conception. So that means they would have to physically be present on the earth to be able to get me pregnant, obviously. So Michael Jackson and Prince are physically eliminated at this point because they're deceased. Okay, so, they'll be around at some point because I'll talk about, raising the dead and how that's going to work and whatnot, and how it's already been working. Because some people have came back as a result of myself and various things. So, Ra, but